Hello, welcome to the Channel Maven, a part of 360 Insights podcast. I'm Akilah Murrell, Senior Manager of Channel Marketing. Today, I had the honor to speak with Bana Qashu. She's the Regional Vice President of Sales at Avant. We talked a lot about the power of influence. What a broad topic, but Bana really brought a unique perspective on why it's important to use your influence to impact others, whether that be your internal teams, your partners, people you do business with. The power of influence can go a long, long way. And at the center of it all, at the end of the day, you're building meaningful relationships, right? And so we talk about success. We talk about defining success. One way to define your success is to really know how you connect with others and how you portray yourself. Bana does a very good job of connecting with others, of being an influence on LinkedIn specifically, and she connects with everyone. And one thing that she really talked about that was really interesting is the different personas, right? You can be multiple personas to multiple people while still maintaining your authenticity and still maintaining the things that you're passionate about. She talked about, yes, being a leader in the channel, but she's also very passionate about her nonprofit work. And she's able to cater to both audience through social. Anyway, I hope you take a listen. I was definitely enlightened, and I hope that you will be as well. Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. I'm so glad that you accepted. I have to tell you, first of all, just to set the stage, because I am all about connecting with people on LinkedIn because I want to see what they're doing. And you do a phenomenal job of just really telling your story as just your career and as you progress and as you connect with partners. I feel like you're big on connections. Like you want to stay connected. And I love that about you. But before we dive into this conversation, first of all, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm Bana Qashu Young, and I have been in the channel a little over 10 years, I want to say. And so new to technology. My background's in nonprofit management, believe it or not, and marketing. And so I am a regional vice president today with Avant on the East Coast, helping build the territory and market. Avant is a TSD, formerly master agent, that is focused on the enablement of our trusted advisors and ensuring that we're providing the tools, the technology, the people that'll help them grow their business, which is something while I was in nonprofits was a focus, which was strategic planning and developing teams, volunteers, you name it. And so lots of transferable skills. I am also a yoga instructor, though COVID put a wrench in that, focusing on yoga therapy. And as I continue to advance in my education there's a lot of things that I apply in my day-to-day in my current role to kind of model the way. And so thank you for having me and look forward to a great conversation.
Absolutely. Now the yoga, that's intriguing. So that's amazing that you can apply that into your day-to-day. I'm sure it comes in handy many, many times.
We are, after all, in the channel, so you need it.
Right, exactly. Absolutely. So I want you to reflect back on your first job. Okay. Reflect back on your first job. And I want you to talk to us about what impact it's had on your career now. It could be just one skill, it could be an experience. What has really impacted you from your first job that you feel like you today have benefited from?
That is a great question. And I had to really dig through because my very first job was right after my family moved to the States from Jordan. And I wanted a summer job at age of 15. And so I worked for the Virginia Employment Commission as an admin, believe it or not, for a whole summer. And what impacted me there is that though it was simple data entry,
Mm-hmm.
it was helping people find the best role that was available to them. And this is before AIs and, computers matching you up. This is application and writing
Right.
directly into the system.
Right.
Two things impacted me during that position. One, the realization of how many people out there are with a sixth grade education,
Mm-hmm.
meaning they've dropped out of high school. It was insane to see. Therefore, I mean, though my parents instilled education in our foundation and how no one can take education away from you, that kind of that example exhibited it even further in real life. Additionally, it was the work ethic, though it wasn't the most fun job to
Mm-hmm.
like have a stack of applications every day you showed up to
Mm-hmm.
input into a database. It's still, if I didn't do it, and if I didn't take accountability,
Mm-hmm.
then someone would have missed out on an opportunity. And so I felt that responsibility. So it's something that, fortunately, also, I mean, we are the product of our foundations too, and what's been instilled in us. However, it was a great experience to see that accountability of what you have to own, whether it's a job or a task,
Mm-hmm.
will impact many others. And so it was wonderful. It was a great experience after all. If you asked me day in and day out if it was the best experience, no, it taught me that I need to move up the ladder fast. And so,
Right. It was
yeah,
motivation.
completely.
That's
But
impressive, though, accountability at such a young age, because I remember back at, going back to my first job, I can't say that was really at the center of my focus was accountability, right? It was just, I was excited to make money, have my own paycheck finally.
yeah,
But that's really impressive. And I think it goes a long ways, right? Especially in our work, in our tech space here, right? As a
yeah,
GC and just,
absolutely.
man, accountability really is the center of everything.
It really is.
Yeah.
And hence the theme of level up for the year, whether it's my personal theme on my vision board or
Right.
the theme across the the team that I get to work alongside with day in and day out. So
Please talk to us about that because I was scrolling through LinkedIn. It was towards the beginning of this year, and I saw your long form post about your theme about leveling up, and it spoke to me. And I kind of shared that with you in an email. But talk to us about that because I think that is such a game changer.
first, I appreciate you taking the time to send me a note because you often put things out in social media and you want to remain relevant, right? And so that you're not just promoting an event, but you're also sharing what your vision and goals are for the year. There are corporate visions that are set by executive leadership or by the owners of your companies. But then you have to have your personal vision of what you want to achieve and your own personal goals. And though at times some are overreaching, but who's to judge, right? These are your personal goals. And so for me this year, the leveling up is as we plateau and we've built such a strong foundation, how do you level up and achieve greater things in the upcoming year? Not to mention, I mean, we've seen it happen in our corporate environment, unfortunately. We're really good candidates that I would say were at the level of level up,
Mhm.
were let go. But then there are some where they need to level up in order to continue to have the opportunities that are available within our channel. So you're seeing it from a corporate standpoint
Mhm.
where the last 3-4 years in our technology space, it's been an employee market. Well,
Mhm.
now it certainly is an employer market. And so, what does that level up look like for you personally, but also for what your organization needs to achieve this year? But then, from a personal standpoint, I personally need to level up on taking the time to find that balance. I mean, we were talking earlier about how often and frequently I'm out and about, but then how do you achieve balance in life? And so that is a challenge for me to find this year. Mm-hmm. That and going back to my regular practice, my regular yoga practice, mm-hmm. because without having the boundaries, right? How can you level up, and how can you maintain the right energy that people need around you to see the passion in whatever goals you're trying to achieve? Life's too short.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I know it's a cliche, but
it's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful, because you mentioned you have to have, it's something for yourself, right? You have to embrace, like, what is your purpose? What drives you? Yes, you have your company. At the company level, your objective, what you're supposed to do. You've got your goals, your metrics. You can talk about that all day long being in sales. But then for your personal goals, what is that? Because it does tie in. I feel like it's the bridge between personal and professional. And so you do have to make sure you have there's something that you personally can embrace and be held accountable for.
Completely. I have 2 vision boards. One in my house in Annapolis, the other one's in New Hampshire, because it needs to stay in front of me at all times. And it includes both. It includes professional goals and it includes personal goals. Mm-hmm. The why, it's my why, right? So you have to find out what your why is. And then you can talk about leveling up your why and how you're going to achieve it. Right. There are times where, for me, it might be, okay, if I do X, then my Y is going to be some kind of reward. And so if I come back to my yoga practice, I've registered for, the classes aren't inexpensive in terms of trainings, especially as you continue on the journey. And so I'm like, okay, if I achieve this, then I'm going to go for my transcendental meditation. Mm-hmm. Or in sales, if I achieve X number as a team, then I reward myself with a gift, a car, you name it, right? Because we work so hard in sales to make those achievements. But they could be much simpler. And so having a vision board is something I firmly believe in. And there are multiple articles out there, whether it's on Fortune or Harvard Business Review, that speak to how many CEOs have vision boards.
Right.
And which is, it's very important. How can you lead a team, an industry, or an activist program without having some kind of vision and path to that journey? Because there are times when, as a leader, you have to step back and be a follower, right? And both will lead you to that path of achieving whatever you put down on paper, in clips, or whatever you need to keep it in front of you at all times. It is my why. The one thing I've learned over the years, though, and it's something I wish I learned a long time ago, is trust your heart, head, and stomach. And if one of them is not in alignment, that's where people get anxiety. That's where you're not having fun anymore. You see negative reactions, and it's because you're not aligned. Additionally, you can't do this alone. And so once people realize that you're a part of a community, you're a part of an organization, or you're a part of the whole, then you realize, well, I can't do this by myself. I can make the choices that I need to make that keep my body in alignment, head, heart, and stomach. But without many great people in my life, that have taught me, we can't achieve what we need to achieve.
Right. And as a leader, because you're at the forefront, and everything you're saying, it's so important. I believe you lead by example, from just that I've met that who know you. And I think it's just amazing. Like the power of influence is what comes to mind when I think about your leadership style, which is amazing that I can even speak to it because of how you represent yourself on LinkedIn. Right. And a lot of people, they don't think it's the power of LinkedIn is just, it's a whole nother level. And how you portray yourself, the content that you share. I really have seen where you've been just so authentic, and I'm sure your team appreciates that about you. How do you go about motivating them to just be great, right? While still keeping their target, their partners at the center of everything that they do. How do you motivate them to do that?
Well, I mean, you hire to the team and the company goals, and um, the you hire with the intent to diversify the team. Mm-hmm. Because if you had a team with everybody having the same strengths, you won't have creativity and innovation. The other thing is, I wrote a post about this, and I thought about actually reposting it. When you hire thoroughbreds, meaning really good self-starters, some have more experience than I do, right? Mm-hmm. You have to give a thoroughbred the path to just run, right? And the autonomy to run. And very rarely is there at this level an opportunity. I call my team the CEOs of their markets, wow. Right? How do you want to run your market? Right. And there is a cadence, there's an activity model, it's that thoroughbred track, mm-hmm. You show the track and you let them run, right? Mm-hmm. And some will take advantage of that, while others will achieve greatness. As I continue to empower my team, I am very transparent. And there are times where, because unless we're really working on DoD projects or one of the 3 secure agencies in the government, right. There's really nothing that you can tell your team in terms of transparency that doesn't help them grow their markets and grow as an individual. Right. Additionally, I try to bring in, so this is where the yoga and learning and balance comes into play. I try to bring in other opportunities, meaning at our different offsites, I've had different speakers that may not necessarily be in the channel or in technology, right? More like sales trainers. During COVID, we did a Chris Voss training on never splitting the difference, and the art of negotiation. Right. So it's important to maintain their professional development as well as your own. We definitely do vision maps every year. Mm-hmm. And people hesitate at first, but then it's amazing to watch the magic. Right. Or the follow-up after a year has gone by and you've posted something.
That's awesome. So the vision map is similar to a vision board, I'm assuming, but it's more just mapping out how you're planning to get there. And so at the end of the year, do you then revisit those vision maps?
There are times, some of the goals are visited during performance reviews. Candidly, it's been fun to watch how many promotions have happened from the team, or those that have exited the Avant side of the house, how much they've grown in their own positions and been promoted. I mean, it's always so great to watch. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I'm in a space and an organization where I have a lot of autonomy as one of the sales leaders to kind of try these programs and try some of these concepts to see if they work. And so that doesn't exist everywhere. And so it's a culture of learning and developing, and certainly maintaining people while elevating them to the next levels, right. or whatever goal they want, candidly.
Right. So, and because you invest so much into your teams, and that enablement, that sales enablement, how do you see that then impact relationships with their partners, with whomever they're working with? How does that impact the success of that relationship?
That's a great question. So that goes back to modeling the way. The leadership challenge is something I used to train teachers on, which was by Barry Posner and Jim Cruz. I'm looking behind me because I have a bookshelf of resources. But modeling the way is one of the 5 principles of the leadership challenge. And so know that, if there's a negative reaction, it transfers. Transference is a real thing.
Yes.
We communicate first and foremost verbally, non-verbally and tone. Those are the 2 forms of communication that people feel immediately. And so I can tell when I have a team member that needs just like a timeout or a day off, because they're subdued. Maybe they're not getting on camera for a few. So it's like, okay, let's take a minute, because in the channel, it's a relationship sale.
Right.
Therefore, what you transfer, people will feel. Now, some may say, well, you're too passionate. Well, it's okay. Because the minute this stops being fun for me, I'll stop it. Right. I self-made 3 times, different career paths.
Right.
And so, again, your heart, head, and stomach have to be in alignment. Believe it or not, if they're not, people feel it. You would feel it today on this in this conversation.
Right.
And so being in a relationship game, we rely heavily on our vendor community and solution providers. Our solution providers are who essentially close the deal. Therefore, they're really our partners first in this personal game of selling, because we have to be aligned with their visions, etc. Right. One of the questions I often ask is, okay, great, you want to help. What is your quota? What can we do to help you? What are your differentiators? So that we're able to go turn around and talk to our customer, our trusted advisor, and have that same passion and excitement about that vendor's product. That's a small example. Our trusted advisors have to trust us as business advisors. The game is no longer, what do you have in the funnel? Right. It never was for Avant. Part of the reason why I joined Avant was because it's a strategic sale. Let's talk about how you want to grow your business tenfold. It may not necessarily be in our space, candidly. Many of our trusted advisors now have other avenues of revenue, partly because of the whole mergers and acquisition trend that we're seeing. Right. They want to increase EBITDA. So it's like, how do we increase it? Well, with different avenues for revenue. But that's also an opportunity to find trusted advisors that are not traditionally in our space and give them that path. Being authentic is by modeling the way, right? And so what I have to level up this year as a leader is, because I'm very transparent, that may come across at times as empowering, not so favorable behaviors, but for the most part, favorable behavior in terms of like treating everybody kindly, whether, and knowing that we're a whole family, whether it's your finance team, your marketing team, we're all working together to achieve that success. Right. And we all touch those trusted advisors. Being authentic about asking questions and being inquisitive. If you're going to your trusted advisor and just saying, here's the value that I bring, like, sell me more, that does nothing for me as a CEO of a business. Whereas if I ask you, tell me a little bit about your business and your goals for the year, that opens the bridge of communication and the ample opportunities that are out there to help and truly help your trusted advisor. But it also takes harder work.
Yeah.
Where accountability comes into play,
right.
you know?
How have you leveraged social to really build those meaningful relationships?
So in terms of LinkedIn, I knew when I first got into this industry, I came in as I took a huge pay cut because I was on the path of a corner office in nonprofits. My mentors were CEOs of major nonprofits in the Washington, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. And so here I found myself, I'm like, I'm ready for this career change. And I'll get to why LinkedIn. And took a pay cut, went into direct sales, trained like a pro. And I said I'd give it a year to 2 years max. If I'm successful at sales, I'll stay in it. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not, then I'll go back to nonprofits because my connections were still alive, relevant, and reputation. I learned that at a very early age. I was 22 years old as a director of communications and marketing for a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. and managing 50 volunteers across state education offices. So not small volunteers.
At 22?
At 22. I worked full-time and went to college full-time. Wow. And so by age 22, I was a director and managing a $5 million budget with a team of 5. And so at that age, I realized very fast social media was around. Mm-hmm. It was MySpace, if many of you remember that.
Yes, I do.
And I knew, just working with experienced adults and mm-hmm. older adults that, they were checking on me 24/7 because here I am 22 years old managing a team. And so I knew what you put out there is watched by all.
Right.
And it influences what? It influences perception. Yes. And so if I wanted to be the casual 22-year-old that every 22-year-old should be, I'm not judging, right? But it would cost me and it would create a bigger credibility for me in terms of rebuilding my reputation with these experienced adults. And so the power of influence occurred then. And being in marketing and communications, you started to dabble in social media even back then. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved into technology, I had to create a persona, right? It's still me, but how do I sell when I've been on the other side of the spend, right? I was the decision maker with a $4.9 million budget. And now I find myself knocking on doors. Fortunately, I had really good salespeople throughout my career and I had really bad ones. So I learned from the bad ones and what not to do and had to mobilize quickly in terms of how to market myself on social to create a technology brand. Mm-hmm. Many are shocked that I've only been in it for 10 years. So after a year, they promoted me into the channel. And I went, what's a channel? I finally learned activity model and direct. Yeah. Made President's Club in 9 months. Oh, I can't take credit for all that. Mm-hmm. I fortunately surrounded myself I talked to the best sellers in the business. I had competition with some of my selling colleagues across the country. And I had a really great mentor in sales, among other mentors that I still to this day lean on. And one of my mentors said, work smarter, not harder. And so I had engineers that were by my side that helped me achieve the President's Club status. But then when I went to the channel, I found myself going, what is this? Right. And I was like, where's the activity model? Right. They're like, no, just go get contracts and make friends. And I'm like, I have plenty of friends. I don't need friends. I need to figure out how to go over 100% of quota year over year, Okay. And so I literally modeled a direct sales model to a channel activity model. And I've really been using it ever since and you just change it based on what products you're selling, right? Whether it's to the channel or not, you still need some kind of cadence or activity model to make sure that your team have what? That path. Your thoroughbreds have that like path of how do I achieve more than 100%?
Right.
You don't want anybody on your sales team that doesn't want more than 100%, because that to me is your salary.
Right. Right.
So created this activity model. And so then I went to LinkedIn because I needed to know who all these friends are. Mm-hmm. And so it was I still to this day call it my personal Rolodex. Because you may know someone I need to get to know. So can I call you? Hence my connector.
Right.
Persona, right? The other thing is always give back.
Yeah.
So how do I give back? I can post about an event every day, but events are boring if that's all you're posting on. You need to post other relevant information. Show your personal brand, show who you are personally. Every once in a while, you'll see like a Sunday leadership post of an article that I may have read that I want to share with my community. I want to remain relevant, not just in technology, but in my nonprofit space also, where I try to maintain some of those relationships. And so I went to LinkedIn. I got Sales Navigator, and literally like cold calling, indirect sales, I cold called the channel. And so LinkedIn was the path. To me, posting on LinkedIn once a day, something relevant about an event, recognizing a colleague or someone in the industry, just do a different checklist. I have a whole checklist. Was not posting every day was not an option. It's like not brushing your teeth. And so if you notice, I have an everyday cadence unless I'm wicked busy and I just can't make it happen. But I try. And so my next post better be really good if I've missed 3 to 4 days. And so it's important to maintain a cadence on there. I wish it was like influencing on Instagram and Facebook where it pays.
Right, of
but
course.
It really does pay in a sense that you do create this persona where people think they know you. And I'm like, oh. So now I tell everybody it's good to see you again, as opposed to nice to meet you, because you just never know where they feel that connection.
Right. Just a quick example. I've heard, I don't know if you know Heather K. Margolis. She actually founded Channel Maven Consulting, and then we were purchased by 360 Insights a couple of years ago. But she always gives this example, and it's happened to me as well, where she'll be at an event and someone meets her and they felt like they've met before, but they've never met. And it's only because they follow her content on LinkedIn and they just feel that connection that we've met before. And I think that's the power of influence, right? And using LinkedIn as a platform to help you build these meaningful relationships. I've built some really great relationships with people that I've never met yet in person.
I would agree.
Yeah. And especially with the line of work you do, I think that's really important because it is relationship building completely.
It really is.
For you and for your teams, but then also for your partners, the people you do business with. And you can really leverage LinkedIn. I love what you said, though. You talked about different personas. That's interesting. And so because we don't have to just be one thing, right? For you, your nonprofit connection, that's important to you. So what do? You don't just ignore that now that you're in the tech space and you're in sales. And I love that you can be intentional about who you're portraying to be, but you're still your authentic self across multiple personas. I love that.
I haven't changed since I was 3 years old. This personality and passion, like if you ask my dad, may he rest in peace, people grow, they learn from experiences.
Right.
But in terms of change your personality, your leadership style, your values, like I'm a high integrity person. It's one of my top 3 values. Therefore, like you won't see a fake persona on there. There are times where my posts may be a little abrasive to someone, but maybe it's because it spoke to you and
Right.
maybe you should explore it.
Right.
And so it's interesting, but you're still a digital persona,
Mm-hmm.
until you meet me in person, you don't really know who I am. Virtual meetings changed our way of selling and way of doing business forever, if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
However, we need to bring back the handshake and look you in the eye. You know why? Because transference can't really happen when you have a technology. It doesn't happen over an internet connection.
Happen through the
No. You can have jazz hands, you can do whatever. You're smiling, but you still need that power of connection. And so right now what we're learning is how to get back into the field, because you think you know me through LinkedIn.
Right.
You don't really know me until you've met me. And so same with any people that rely on it 100% right now. I know it's the convenient thing to do. Because who wants to get on a plane? I'm getting ready to head out to Boston and there's a squall, right? My initial thought is, can't I just move all my live meetings to a platform?
Right.
Of course I can. But is that a good choice when I haven't been in market for a good period of time now?
Right.
No, it's not. We used to go up in the air all the time prior to COVID. So I think there's an inherent fear. So I'm holding myself accountable to level up how I meet my partners, our partners across the country, and that or across the East Coast.
Right.
And that's to make those choices.
Right.
If you rely on LinkedIn solely to build your brand, that's ineffective either.
I think it's a hybrid approach that
it really is.
It's combining both. If anything, that COVID, the pandemic taught us is it did unlock other ways to communicate and stay connected with people, but it's not just one or the other. We have to merge. We have to bring both in. I love going to face-to-face events. Love it. But I also love the fact that we can connect like you and I are right now without, I don't think we would have, I don't know, like at an event, we're so busy. I don't know that we could sit down and record a podcast, right? And so the power of just virtual meetings, that brings it about. But I'm also looking forward to connecting in person. There's something about it. There's something about it. And just a quick story, and it's not about me, but I feel like it applies here. I choose one word every year, one word. I've done away with New Year's resolutions this is my 9th year. And I choose one word that becomes my mantra. And this year, the word is connected on so many levels, even personally. How am I connecting with my family, with those I love? How am I connecting at work? It's not just about a connection. It's deeper than that. Am I connecting with people? Because I think it can impact change in a greater way the more connected you are, and also connectedness also brings about proximity. I can't connect with you from a distance. And I think it's important that we think that way as we service our customers, our internal teams. As a leader, how are you connecting with your folks, right? And so it's powerful. I think there's a lot of power in that. Yeah.
And being present. I mean, how often do we feel like, oh, I've been offline now for an hour. My inbox must have 60 emails. That's not being present.
Right.
I love that, Akilah. Like we all need it.
We do. We do.
One of my mentors is Ian Kinniger, our founder and CEO at Avant.
Okay.
And he told me a couple of weeks ago, he goes, maybe it's time to slow down to go faster.
Oh, I love that. That's so true.
It's so insightful, isn't it? Talk about, because here I am thinking, oh man, how am I going to level up everything and still have time to eat or have a drink of water?
Yeah.
And so it's been eating at me for 2 weeks. Like how do I slow down to go faster? So your example of connecting and just taking the time to connect,
Mhm.
it creates more authenticity.
Right.
I have a team member um, who tells me all the time, he goes, the power you have of just multitasking. And, he made the comment to me a couple of times to where I'm like, am I not paying close attention? Am I
Right.
not in the now because
Right.
I've got Teams dinging in my ear or whatever platform you use to chat,
Right.
or my text messages are going off and I'm sure you're hearing the buzz in the background. How do you disconnect to reconnect?
Right.
And so it's very insightful and I love it. I love
That's
that that's
awesome.
here.
Slow down
And
to move faster and disconnect to reconnect. That's powerful. Like that's it. We're done. Like that was just powerful. I was actually going to ask you what would be, words of wisdom. What would be your words of wisdom to a leader? And I really feel like what you just shared with us is
it's perfect.
it's perfect. And not just as a leader, just as individuals.
We came up to with it together.
It was perfect. Good job. Good job. Authenticity, right?
It was wonderful.
So this is
So
great. Well, anything else you want to share? I know we're reaching our time here, but anything else you want to share? Anything at all?
don't forget to say thank you. That is like something I do every single day, whether you use a gratitude journal, the 5-minute gratitude journal, whatever resource. And I know I've dumped a lot of resources on you today. Whatever resource works best for you, whatever it is, it's waking up and just saying thank you, at least to one thing, if not three, because with that, you start your day with an open heart. And so I thank you for having me today, because without these opportunities, I cannot continue to build the path that we need to take action, whether it's, activating our industry and ensuring that we're keeping young people in our professions, or whether it's to take action in the day to day and serving our trusted advisors and provider community. So I really appreciate you
Thank
and the
you.
time.
I really appreciate this conversation. I feel like my heart is full and just you have I feel like we can talk forever and ever. It'd be like a 2 hour long podcast. But honestly, I really appreciate your insightful approach and just you sharing what you're sharing, your passion and your heartbeat with our audience. And it's really important. It ties back into how successful you can be, right? Or you can also be a blocker. And I feel like you've shared with our audience ways that they can enhance their leadership experience for their teams, for their partners. It just carries on. And so I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.